Yevamos tzadi. The Gemara says that the Chacham have a koyach to be oikedov min atoy shev al taseh and not become vaseh. And the Gemara says, therefore, sadin tzitzis. It's also hated the Chacham or oiker. The mitzvah to be lovish, sadin tzitzis, because it's shev al taseh. Taseh asks, why is sadin tzitzis considered shev al taseh? When you put it on a beggar of dal kamfis without tzitzis, you're over on the mitzvah of not putting on tzitzis biyadayim, so it should be considered vaseh. So Taseh says the only mechuyev to put on tzitzis after you're wearing the beged, so therefore it's considered shev al taseh. The Shagis Aryeh has a tremendous arichas on this Taseh, and he asks on Taseh that there's a different teretz to Taseh's kasha because it's considered shev al taseh, because since the whole aveira of not putting on tzitzis is that fact that you don't have tzitzis on the beged, not the asiyah of putting on the beged, so therefore it's considered shev al taseh. And he proves on the fact that the brought in the Mordechai says that if someone doesn't have tzitzis on his beged, he's allowed to put on the beged on Shabbos. And since he's onus on not putting on the tzitzis, therefore he's allowed to put on the beged without tzitzis. So you see, that's not the pshat that the putting on the beged's osur, the putting on the beged's mutter, and there's a chiv to put on tzitzis. So therefore, it's considered onus on Shabbos, and who it didn't should be considered shev al taseh. In regard to yesh koyach biad chacham lakadover, he has a riches to explain the answer to Taseh. Says that you could claim many chakiris in that the Chazal said you could oikedov and shev al taseh not kum vaseh. Is the kum vaseh totally in the actual aveira, if the aveira is kum vaseh or shev al taseh, or it's totally in how you've been over and not performing the mitzvah, if it's bekum vaseh or shev al taseh? Like lo yor panei reikom, the actual aveira is the not being the korban, which is shev al taseh, being over it, bekum vaseh, becoming the azor, is that considered kum vaseh or shev al taseh? And Reb Chon declares the second chakira, which just says it's totally in this chakira, is when Chazal oike a mitzvah shev al taseh is the pshat oike the mitzvah entirely, and there's no kilu, there's no mitzvah min haTorah b'chlal. All the pshat is there is a mitzvah min haTorah, but there's a second mitzvah midrabanan to l'shmoil divrei chacham, and meil halacha is a shev al taseh. So B'chanan says that you see from Taseh that Chazal would not oike the mitzvah midrais entirely. Rather, there's a din noisif l'shmoil divrei chachamim. And therefore, when you put on the beged of Dal Kamfus without tzitzis, is considered like being oikedov min haTorah. However, if Chazal would be mafkir the mitzvah entirely of putting on tzitzis, so then when you put on the beged without Dal Kamfus, it's not considered you being oikedov min haTorah become vaseh. And Reb Chanan continues that Tosfos understands, although the actual aveira is the not putting on tzitzis, since you're being over the mitzvah be yadayim with a Maseh, putting on a beggar without al kanfis, that's considered oikedov and Torah kum vaseh. And he says it's not a stira from that the Re says the putting on a beggar of dal kanfis without tzitzis on Shabbos is considered oinus, because the actual aveira is the not putting on tzitzis, and that's considered shev al taseh. You won't get malchus. However, it's totally in the oifen of how you and that's a kum vaseh. I'm the Sefer Artz Zachayim from the Malbim that asks the kasha on that the Shagis Aryeh says that since you've been over on the very b'shev al taseh, the not putting on tzitzis and not being a korban via is considered shev al taseh. He says it's tzorchim from kam makoimus that's mevur b'chagavna is considered an akiris dovor become vaseh, from the fact that the Rambam paskins that when you bring a korban without melech, you loikes al koch, you see, even though the isser is not putting on melech, since you bring a korban without melech, you loike. And another kashi is from the fact that the Rambam paskins by shluach avodim yesh mishaleach eved reikom, you loike. So even though the aver is the fact that you did not give hanacha, nevertheless, since the Maseh is a shiluach reikom yeloika, ein shurim Bayed of Zion that we brought from a Bruvain that brings from Baruch Ber that explains the Tutz Todim in the Mordechai Legabe Levish's kilaim, but tzitzis on Shabbos, And according to Yisod Advarim, you can answer that's the Chaim's Kasha that Baruch Ber explained. The suffix of the Mordechai is the Gabi, the Geder of the Chiv, of Levisha's beged with tzitzis, is the pshat that when you put on a beged of dal kanfis, you mechuyev to pmata by tzitzis. All that geder is, it's a din in how you wear a beged dal kanfis. It stells a vek the ikr geder of how you wear a beged of dal kanfis is specifically with tzitzis. So if the geder is that's a way you loivish a beged of dal kanfis with tzitzis, then it's considered a kumbaseh. It's not considered shev taseh. So the answer to Shagis Ari is that's choluk, the mitzvah of Atolas tzitzis, that the Shagis Ari understands that the shev taseh, that's a dova noisif, you're putting on a beged dal kanfis, and afterwards it's a dova noisif, the mechuyev and tzitzis. However, the gabi, the chiyuv to put melech in a korban, it's a din in the ikar hakrov as a korban that you bring a korban with melech, and you shuluach avodim with hanacha. So therefore, the ikar asiyah is meishich shayich to that is chometz and that it's breikom. So therefore, it's considered lav sheish b'maisa. I know it begins the agrach in shurim in chagigat af beis. Moving further on, Taseh says that it's cholek kilaim and tzitzis. Kilaim, the ikar is at the time of Levisha. However, mitzvahs tzitzis is after Yinis Atif in the tzitzis. The Shagis Ari asked that very shver understanding and Taseh if the issa of Levisha's kilaim is before the mitzvah tzitzis, how is it possible that we say by kilaim but tzitzis, it's not beidna. The assay of tzitzis is only after the lav of Levisha's kilaim. B'chanan kavitz oris says the answer to this kasha is that although the key mitzvah of tzitzis is only after you have the beged on you, nevertheless the Maseh mitzvah is even before you have a beged that you're wearing. And the actual putting on the beged is the Maseh mitzvah of Levisha's tzitzis. And he says it's similar to what we find that Taseh says that a passage as to say on the mitzvah of Puruvu. And the Cheschinnach asks that the key mitzvah of Puruvu is only when one has children. So therefore, the actual bia is not a mitzvah. So B'chanan says, although the key mitzvah is at that time one has children, the Maseh mitzvah is at the time of the bia, and it passes say through the Maseh mitzvah. So B'chanan says over here also, although the key mitzvah of Levisha's tzitzis is when you're wearing a beged dal kanfis with tzitzis. The Maseh mitzvah is at the time of Levisha. I need Yehuda that says a different teretz that since it's impossible to mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzis without doing a Maseh Levisha, so therefore at the time of the Maseh Levisha that you bring over issa kilaim, it's considered be'idna because it's impossible to mekayim the mitzvah of putting on tzitzis without the Maseh Levisha, so therefore it's sharply considered be'idna. Moving further on, the Shagis Aryeh asks a tremendous kasha on Taseh. He asks, why does Taseh say that not putting on tzitzis is considered a shev taseh? It's mavur in many places, even when you're over in the situation of shev taseh. If that day you were over in shev taseh came through a Maseh mikora, even the shev taseh later has a din of a Maseh biyadayim. He says you find the gabe Levisha's kilaim. It's more in the sugi of the makis daf chafalev that if they're masu you to take off the kilaim, it's considered a lav sheish b'maisa, even though the not taking off is a shev taseh. And he says more even if at the time that he went in and he did the Maseh, it didn't have din of aveiro. Nevertheless, the asiyah mikor k'dimashva, the shev taseh later into a Maseh. So what din over here? The fact that he put on the beged without the al-kanfis should be mashva, the not putting on tzitzis into ukum vaseh. The Arz Chaim from the Malbim says the answer to this kasha is that's mavur in the Ritva and Makis, that the reason why the Maseh Mikora makes the not taking off the beged into kum vaseh is because it's considered as if you put the beged on again when you could have taken it off and you didn't take it off. So he says, therefore, specifically by kilaim, that if you would put the beged on now, but kilaim, it's considered lav sheish b'maisa. However, by tzitzis, even if you put the beged on now, the chiv hatolas tzitzis is after the beged's on you, so therefore the chiv tzitzis is always a shev al taseh. So therefore it's considered shab or shev al taseh. And that goes on the Shagis Arif from Dmitrovsky that brings from Nachas Binyamin that said a different teretz that the Maseh Mikor is considered a Maseh only but see if the Maseh that you're doing now. However, by tzitzis, since Chazal will the mitzvah, and now you consider the oinus and not putting on the tzitzis, therefore that you're doing now is not considered a Maseh and can't be mitzvah to the Maseh Mikor. Now you can be Mosif beer according to the Yisoid that you mentioned the Shir and Chagigat of Beis from Shiur and Talmud that says that there's two halakim for every Maseh. There's a din Maseh mitzad, the Asiyas Hagavra, and there is another din of a Maseh mitzad the Chefza of the Asiyah. So therefore you need a tziruf of the Maseh Mikor, which is an Asiyah of the Gavra and the Asiyah mitzad hachefza that you've been over now, and therefore by lo yoru panei reikam we explained that since there's no isser mitzad the guf ha'maisa, now the isser is when you're not being a korban. It's not like being tummy in the Beis HaKvoros. This is where you're missing a korban. So therefore, it's not considered Maseh mitzad hachefza right now when you're not bringing a korban. So within over here, the Maseh of shev al taseh is the fact that you don't have tzitzis, which doesn't have a din of a Maseh. Therefore, it can't be mitzvah to the Maseh mikora to be mashvei the asiyah to yesh b'Maseh.